weekly live show brought to you by Team at Bunker Labs, a national network of veteran and military spouse entrepreneurs dedicated to growing our ecosystem. I'm your host, the one and only Iron Mike Steadman, coming to you from Newark, New Jersey, joined by my co-host Amy Warrenton and our special guest today, fellow Marine and CEO of Bunker Labs, Mr. Blake Hogan. Amy and Blake, good morning.
Morning.
Mike, hey brother, thanks for having us. Glad to be on the show with you.
It's always a pleasure when we have Blake to come on the platform, share some updates of what's going on in the bunker at the higher level. We're going to be talking about America's business mission. We're going to be talking about our ambassador program and just answer any questions you all may have in general. So before Blake and I get into things, let me go ahead and pass it over to Amy to share any updates that are taking place in the bunker.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, so this week we've got ambassador program applications are open today, so you can check that out on the website. We talked about that last week, so if you missed last week's episode, we did a Q&A with Xavier, who is the director of programs. And if you want any more information, you can check out bunkerlabs.org/ambassador-program. And then also just a reminder that we've got blog posts out about getting your veteran-owned small business certification. All the info you need is there, and that is on the blog. And then we also have a couple other things that you guys have probably heard before, but we're going to remind you anyway. Your first 10 customers, we got an ebook that you can download with tips and tricks on how to get those first 10 customers, your most important customers. And then last but definitely not least, we have our crash course in small business finance that we partnered with Intuit on, and it's a 6-part little mini-series podcast that Mike hosted, and it's got all kinds of good financial information for y'all. And that's the main stuff this week.
Awesome, Amy. Thank you. So without further ado, I get to welcome to the stage Blake. Blake, just give our listeners, you've been busy behind the scenes. I got to see you in where were we at? Chicago for the Bunker Lab CEO Circle flying. We rolled out America's business mission there. There was a lot of stuff that was happening behind the scenes before that in order to prep that. So just bring us up to speed.
Yeah, hey, I always love to be on the show. It was great to be back in Chicago where Bunker launched. We're coming in on 10 years here at Bunker Labs, and we started this thing to solve 2 problems. Access to the right connections and access to capital to help people pursue their American dream and launch and grow great businesses. And so, we've always had this saying, we want them to be locally thriving and nationally connected. And so, okay, how do we do that? So one of the ways we do that is with the ambassador program, but also with the launch of the America's business mission. The goal is we want to rally the top business leaders and civic leaders in this country to connect them to Bunker Labs companies and to help them grow. So I'm pretty pumped to say we launched with 35 partners that included everything from the Institute at Veterans and Military Families, from Syracuse University, to Right to Start with Vic Huang, who literally wrote the book on ecosystem building at Kauffman, and a number of CEO Circle companies and small businesses across the country that joined in. But the idea was simple. It's hey, let's just connect the humans. Let's make it really easy to do it. Let's break it into 3 categories. There are business partners. So those are folks that want to support the mission of Bunker Labs financially. So they want to help support our operations. There's capital partners. So those are people that are allocating capital. So we have this awesome partnership with Hello Alice and MasterCard, right? So if you're trying to get your first sort of business credit, here's a great way to do that. There's, almost a dozen veteran-led venture capital funds that are a part of, that initial launch. And then our ecosystem partners. So everything, across the board, from space partners, from resources, education partners, et cetera. And the idea is hey, if you need something, go check out that America's Business Mission page. All of the links are backlinks, so you can click and connect with those partners, or just shoot us a note. We're happy to make it happen. And we brought on board Ariel to help run that. If you haven't had a chance to meet Ariel, she's incredible. I won't steal too much of her thunder, but we've got almost another 20 partners that we'll announce here over the next coming month or 2.
What excites me the most about America's business mission, I feel like it's the natural evolution of Bunker. Like you said, we've been going at it 10 years at this point. You've had a lot of entrepreneurs succeed. And this is an opportunity, as Paul Capon would say, to send the elevator back down, or as I like to say, lift as we climb. So being part of that ecosystem that helped us get to where we are and do it in a meaningful and structured way. Because a lot of times people say, I want to help, I want to get involved, I might not have a chance to, be an ambassador or something, but how else can I, get in the game? And this is a great way to do it. And the second reason I'm excited about it, and this is something we can talk about, I think early on when this kind of veteran entrepreneurial ecosystem popped up, so many of us were looking just to reconnect with other veterans and military spouses. But now, as we start to gain more and more experience, we realize how valuable it is to bring in those non-veteran, from a capital and support SMEs. I do it on the Transition podcast where I bring in, civilians that didn't necessarily serve, but have massive value to add to our audience. And that's what excites me the most about America's Business Mission, because if we can get non-vets to see the value that we bring to the economy and our local communities, man, it's like off to the races.
About 100%. And that was, one of the reasons why, we even struggled with, do we call it the America's Military Business Mission? And who knows, maybe over time we'll evolve back into that. But I really pushed and said, hey, there's a reason why we're doing this. It's because we want to attract folks that have never served in the military, don't have any connection to the military, but have absolutely crushed it as business or civic leaders. And so, one of the ones that we'll announce, I'll go against protocol here, but we've got a press release that'll come out in a couple of weeks announcing our partnership with the Association for Corporate Growth. And there are about 60 chapters across the country. They're all kind of middle market buyers and sellers of businesses. So they're putting capital into companies. They're buying companies. They're helping people transition. And it's an incredible relationship because all of our companies at some point are going to grow and they're going to want to do something with it, whether they want to acquire companies or they want to exit. So having a network like Association for Corporate Growth to be able to immediately tap into, and, it's like, these are like real deal business leaders. And so we're excited to, formally announce that. We've got some cool events coming up with them. But it's a direct call to say, hey, if you're a business leader in this country, we want to make it super easy for you to connect with that, next greatest generation of companies.
You and I were also at the Military Veteran Startup Conference in February, and it was pretty cool for you to say, you got on stage and you asked everybody in attendance, hey, raise your hand if you've been impacted by the bunker, right? You've gone through one of our programs, you've got a referral, or et cetera. And like over half the room stood up, which was super powerful. And Tim, who puts on the conference with Context Ventures, one of the things he's talking about for this next year is inviting those civilian venture capitalists to come and to see this military talent all in one room. Because as we're kind of part of the same community. We see each other, we know we exist, but there's still a lot of people out there that don't really know the breadth and scope of the veteran entrepreneur and military spouse ecosystem.
I mean, you're right. We want to stop singing in the choir. Bottom line is small businesses and particularly military-led and military spouse-led companies are like a good investment, right? So if you look at the economy over the past few months, nearly 2/3 of all net new jobs come from small businesses, right? So if you're talking about how we ignite the economy, it's through those businesses. And of those 2/3, those were companies that were 50 employees or fewer. Right. So it's not like, I think people see these big headlines of like, oh, look at like what this big company did. And that's important to anchors and to have some anchors in communities across the country. But what's real. So I got an email today, this morning from Beth Finbo, who's an Army veteran from my home state, Minnesota. Her very first pitch was at our Minneapolis muster. I don't know, probably 6 years ago now, or more. And she was, nearly hyperventilating, getting ready for it. And the bunker team, Jenny Hans from our development team, was there being like, hey, you got this, girl. So today she was listed as number 166 on Inc.'s 5,000 fastest growing companies. She had something like 3,000, I think it's 3,150% growth over the last 3 years. And it's like, she had an idea. Her kid was like throwing stuff while they were out to lunch. And she's like, hey, if I suction cup something on here and put some toys on it, maybe I could have a little bit better conversation. Right. And now she's like creating jobs and creating that. And bottom line, like if your network only is the military community, like we're in it, we're all in, we're here to help. But if we're going to take things to the next level, we've got to invite business leaders and civic leaders to the party and give them a seat at the front row. And that's what America's Business Mission is all about.
Now I want to shift gears. I want to talk about our ambassadors, because those are the frontline troops. They're in the trenches. They're carrying the bunker flag, right? They're growing their ecosystems. And there's been a lot of changes with ambassador program over the years. I think when I came on Bunker, I talked to Xavier about this. I was a community manager at first for the veterans and residents in New York City. Then I shifted to becoming the entrepreneurial city leader. And today we're at the ambassador. So let's talk about ambassador programs. What are you seeing from those that are in their local communities, shaking hands, kissing babies, and really, being that brand ambassador for igniting the American economy?
I mean, bottom line, we're seeing people that no kidding care about each other and their success, and they're willing to be in the trenches with them and help open doors so that they can, compress that time for success or frankly for failure, right? The big vision with our ambassadors is to create an entrepreneurial core, like we have a Peace Corps, right? Like we go out into the world to talk about the values of this country and democracy and how we can, learn and grow as a society. We don't have a core that's focused on how we build entrepreneurial networks and local economies across the country. That's what our ambassadors are doing. So today we opened up the applications. They'll be live for about 30 days or so, and they'll kick off formally in January. And it's a natural evolution. So we've been incredibly, fortunate to have great, leaders, across nearly 40 cities around the country. And I'm excited to really be able to pour into them in a way that we haven't been able to do in the past. So they'll kick off in Austin, Texas in January, in sort of the center of gravity of entrepreneurial activity in Austin, Texas. So we'll be back at the Capital Factory with Josh Baer and their team. We'll be talking about local startup ecosystems and understanding that. And then in April, we'll head to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce in Washington, D.C., where we'll see sort of the national business landscape and get connected to chambers across the country. And then in August, they'll graduate by doing what we call this ecosystem leadership project, which I'll talk about. And that'll happen at Syracuse University's Institute for Veterans and Military Families, right? So you'll have this local startup feel, then you get to learn about national business, and then go and present your learnings with the support of the university and the institute. And then we'll take all of that learning, all of that research, dump it back into that cycle so that we can learn and grow and improve the program and improve, most importantly, local networks. So, if you're a servant leader, if you're somebody that cares about your local community, if you want to see doors being open and you can help kick them down, then we want you to apply. And this is also the first time. So like America's Business Mission was open and an explicit call to business leaders that might not have served, the ambassadors are also open to anybody across the country. So in the past, it's always been, if we have a veterans and residents in that city, we have an applet. We'll work to have ambassadors. So Ty will go to the veterans and resident cities. But if you're an incredible ecosystem builder in Little Rock or Anchorage or Topeka, we want to bring that network together and coalesce a group of leaders that can create this entrepreneurship core. And ultimately, I see it as the beginnings of a national service model around entrepreneurship and ecosystem building.
I'm sorry, y'all. I just got text that one of my friends killed himself. I need to hop off live.
You got it, brother.
Can you take it? Can you take it from the top?
I got it.
All right. Thank you.
So, part of this is just being real and accepting that, stuff like this happens. And, the power of this community is the fact that we can just be here for each other. It's something we never want to see or have happen close to us. But the reality is it does. And I think that's the beauty of this community is we're hey, part of getting everybody together means that you're there in the lows, you're there in the highs, and you're able to just support each other. So I'm going to open up the chat if there are any questions in the chat, and just know that we're here for you, Mike. We're praying for you, and unfortunately, that's something that we know all too well in this community. there are a lot of resources out there. So, Amy, if you don't mind, looking up I think it's like 988 or 983 or whatever, like the national hotline number is, and dumping that into the chat. USAA also came out with a massive effort. I think it's called Face the Fight, with a number of coalitions across the country to try to like address this head on. So
yeah, it's 988.
988. So like,
Yeah, I'll get it.
if you're struggling, if you need help, like, while our mission is entrepreneurship, like what we're here to do is help each other. So, I'm sorry, brother.
Yeah. Unfortunately, not the first time this has happened live on the air.
All right. So in the chat there, you've got that line. We're here for you. I'm here for you. Team's here for you. Yes. Thanks, Eddie. We face the fight. So if you look up Face the Fight with USAA, that's in there. All right.
Awkward. So yeah, I mean, we can wrap up if you want to wrap up early. I think we got the gist of the ambassador program and the America's Business Mission out there for everybody. Unless you have more you want to talk about.
No, I think it's just like I think it's just important for people to know that like mental health is real. Like we go to the gym to work out, and I think the military is just working to break the stigma around mental health. Like I started seeing a therapist for the first time ever during the pandemic.
Always good. Always good.
Well, I was like, I don't need that. I don't have feelings. I realized I did. I even nicknamed him Miyagi. His name was kind of similar to that. And I was like, hey, I got my own Mr. Miyagi finally.
Yes, important for veterans and important for men in general. I mean, important for everybody, but specifically, mental health is very important.
Well, look, yeah, like I was saying my daughter started kindergarten, right? And I think it's like I want my daughters to see like people are real, people have emotions. There are things that we do that are really hard, and it's okay. And it's also really important for kids to like in a healthy way see that you're human. Yeah, look, we're here. I love you, Mike. The ambassador program is a big part of that, right? It's all about, can we just like create tribes and help people grow? Our focus is businesses, but it's about helping people grow. If there are any questions, I'm happy to take them. And if not, my ask would be say a prayer for Mike and his friends, family and friends. And we love you. 10 for 5, brother.
Yep.
All right, I'll give it an awkward silence for a second here and see. All right, hey, there's some great resources in here. So Eddie, Civilian Ready has a game-changing solution of transition as wellness. Face the Fight with USA, and then the text line 988. All right. We'll take it.
Thanks, guys.